All right. Thank you so much for your time, Francois Klark, for coming on Public Conversations. We are here now in Edmonton, and we talk to artists across the country about their musical journey and projects they have in the works. We couldn't be more happy and excited to have you on the show today. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to see you again, too.
Okay, so I was thinking the best place to start my conversation with you, considering that we had spoken probably some 2 years ago now, but I want to
It's
say
been that long?
Yes, yes, it's crazy. But I want to say congratulations on your album. I know we talked about it the last time we spoke, and we had talked about Paper Planes, but it was all in this
hmm
build up to your album. So congratulations on Adventure Book.
Thank you so much.
How does it feel to be putting out a sophomore album at this time?
It's always great to put out music. You know, if you spend so much time working on stuff and you're excited about it, and sometimes you're not so excited about it while you're creating it because you feel, things are not working. And then, at the end of the day, it comes together. And it is so wonderful to actually sit back and listen to the final thing. And, you have an idea when you start, and then to be done with it and see where it ended up. And, many times there's no way that you could have imagined that it would go the places that it went. So it feels really good. Also, just on a busyness perspective, it was so crazy and everything was happening at the same time, and juggling so many different balls, and also making a record during the time that shall not be ever named again, um, was it was a different kind of challenge, but it feels really, really good to be able to share it with people.
Awesome, awesome. And I think you mentioned something I want to pick up on. So, um, you said you never quite know how an album's kind of is going to make out. How do you, is that a fun process for you? Because I typically say there's the album that you envision that you want to create, and the album you eventually get to make. At the end of this
hmm
process, are you pleasantly surprised at what you're able to put together, or you're like, this isn't quite what I had envisioned?
You know what? I'm actually surprised at being able to achieve the whatever I set out to achieve in the beginning. I had this plan of what I wanted to sound like, the sound components, the instrumentation, production, who I wanted to work with, all that stuff. And I'm actually, in the end of the day, kind of going, oh, it actually all worked out. We actually got there, and then all the bonus things are things that you couldn't imagine that it would turn out that way. But I am surprised and happy that the vision that was there in the beginning actually came into fruition.
Great, great. I'm so happy to hear that because now we start to go, because all through when I read about your bio or read about you, or when I think about you, what I hear, and I think that the one word that continually runs across what is written about you is that you are a craftsman to a certain extent, and you hear it when you listen to your music, how detail is important to you. So I thought the first place to begin in talking about detail about this particular record would be the cover art or the artwork, which
Hey.
is just brilliant. So I'm like, of course, he's going to pay this much attention to his artwork. So tell me about that cover art, what it means and how it came together, because it's so detailed.
So when I had the concept of the album, I knew that it's going to be adventure book leading up with all the singles. There was this theme of like a book cover and a storybook, and so I wanted to pull that through all the way to the end. But then also I needed the artwork to tell a little bit and hint at the stories that are happening in each of the songs, since each of the songs is kind of like a little story or a little snapshot. So when you're looking at the artwork, I I spoke with the artist, who I will chat about in a second because she's awesome.
Okay.
When I chatted with her, we talked about every single song, and I kind of just made suggestions about, this song is about this, this song is about this, this song is about this. Is there a way that we can incorporate all these things visually? So if you look at the cover art, you'll see there is, there's a little figure
You have a
that's me,
backpack
or
on, yeah.
yeah, I got a little backpack on, so kind of that that idea of adventure book Dora the Explorer. I don't know. That was not the idea. But yeah, kind of adventure. And I'm standing in a little sailboat, so that pulls back to sailing. And the whole backdrop is actually one of the main streets in Antigua in Guatemala with a yellow arch. And a lot of the songs had, Fuego had its beginnings in that little town. And you'll see on one of the walls to the left of the artwork, there are two little boys, one dressed up like a pirate, other one dressed up like an astronaut, and then their faces have that Dia de los Muertos face paint on them. And that is kind of like a reference back to pirates, where the lyric is let's dress up like pirates, let's fly on our spaceships. And then that song had its roots in Oaxaca City when I was there for Dia de los Muertos. So all these elements, like I spoke to the artist, and she kind of, we talked about composition a little bit, and said that it needs to be colorful and bright because the album is kind of adventure and exciting. And I definitely have to mention the artist. Her name is Marleon Hiefer, and she is a South African artist who now lives in London, England. And her and I actually went to elementary and high school together. And
Hmm.
she was in the year older than me. She's always been a phenomenal visual artist, and she went to school for fine art. And then after all these years, I thought, what, it'd be just such a nice full circle moment to bring somebody from my life and pull them into the project. That would just be an extra layer into the record, since Cecilia on the record is about my hometown and going to school and growing up. And so having her be the artist, well, not Cecilia, that's a different person, but having Marleon be the artist for the cover art just brought it a little bit closer to home. And she did such an incredible job.
That's so remarkable, that story in itself, that you get to work with somebody on this project who you've known for so long. What was the importance of that beyond her ability to actually take your imagination and put it on paper? Like, but what value did you find in that?
It just makes the whole project even more personal to me, I think. And it just, since everything is storytelling, involving her into it uh, adds so much to the story behind not only the record but the stories on the record. Um, I think it kind of just wraps everything up. And since artwork is kind of like the packaging of your product, it's a nice little bow on top of the whole thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the one thing I've been thinking about, and I have rummaged your site, trying to find, did he actually put out like a limited run of a physical copy? Like, can I get this? I want to get this. I don't care how much it costs. I want a vinyl. Like, I haven't quite found that because I think this is something that I personally would love to collect. So, is there a physical copy of this stuff anywhere in the world?
There is not a physical copy yet, but there will be records. There's definitely going to be a record. So in the new year, I'm releasing the whole record on digital or on Atmos
Okay.
surround. So that's in the works. And then once that is done, I want to add maybe a song or two that's not on this digital release, and then put that on the record. And then I have the artwork and a couple extra leaflets of artwork inside the actual record.
Oh my God. I am looking forward to that. I will bug whoever I need to bug to get my hand on one of that because I just think it's I think at a time when such detail wouldn't necessarily be put into artwork when it comes to the package because that's like a throwback to what you would find like in the
Yeah,
early
I
days, right?
guess still part of the old school mentality of wanting to make records that start somewhere and then develop somewhere as you go through the tracks and then end somewhere and tells a story, which is a completely different time that we're living in. But with this record, we took a couple of the songs, released them as singles, but at the end of the day, I have a hard time getting away from releasing a start at the first track and at the last track kind of story. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm so excited, and I think the first thing I noticed as well after looking at how amazing the cover art is that um, again, still with this thread of storytelling, that the album starts off at in Guatemala and ends up in Mexico, kinda.
Yeah,
Is that a good way to interpret how the songs have been arranged?
100%. Yeah. So Guatemala is kind of like where, that was one of the first places that I visited when I was a poor student in college, and I finally had, saved up a little bit of money to be able to go to the cheapest place that I could go to. So, I literally just Googled what is the cheapest place to go to from Canada and found a bunch of cheap flights, and then also took in consideration how expensive it is to live while you're there. So I just backpacked to Guatemala, and that was the first trip that I was, kind of like on my own. Just decided I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see the world, and that's kind of what started all my journeys. And I thought that's a good place to start the record. And uh, since the whole record kind of has that imagery of the sun in it, so the sun rising, having afternoon, having twilight or dusk, and then the sun setting. And Oaxaca was one of the last places that I visited before that time that shall not be named happened. And so it was just kind of like, the day starting, sunrise all the way to the end, or the beginning of trips all the way to the end of trips.
Awesome, awesome. So again, I'm very, and since I'm talking to a very detailed oriented artist, I want to know um, what went into the arrangement of the songs here. We're gonna get to the part where we talk about Fuego, which is your single, which is your current single. But I hopefully am gonna express what I find to be just an amazing song on the album, which is my personal favorite at the moment. But in terms of just arranging those songs, what went into that in terms of that storytelling process as well?
The production, arranging production, all that stuff. So as I approach a producer that I want to work with, I always kind of make a little mock-up of what I want stuff to sound like. Um, with the very first track and the very last track on the record, that's kind of my hands were a little bit like I was a little bit more hands off with the first and the
Yeah,
last track on the record. Um, all I did for those was I composed the theme and I wrote the piano parts for the first and the last track, and then approached a composer friend of mine, James Irvin, and then just kind of said, I want, this is a storytelling album called Adventure Book, and I love cinematic music and music for film and TV. So with this first and this last track on the record, just take the reins, make it beautiful and epic. It has to have strings, a little bit of horns. Um,
yeah.
so with those things, my involvement kind of stopped at the piano arrangement and the piano recording, and then just giving him some ideas for like what direction the arrangements have to go in. With the rest of the tracks on the album, I was quite involved with the production process, and worked with Sean Wharton, who is in British Columbia. He did all the heavy lifting on the production, but again, I would just send him little mock-ups of the songwriting and then what I want the production to sound like, and then he would take that on. That was like a lot of back and forth, especially because we weren't able to be together. So that's kind of like what a little bit of the production process sounded like, and then I wanted that orchestral element that's in the first and in the last track to kind of pull through the entire record, and for that we used string arrangements. And a really good friend of mine, Christian Berge, was on Sailing, and he was also on Beautiful Universe, and he did the string arrangements for those two tunes. And then Sean Wharton is also an incredible string player. So for Fuego and Cecilia, and I'm trying to remember all the songs that he worked on 4 of the songs on the record.
I have
He
them right
also
here, but go ahead.
I have it right here too, so I just quickly have to go. So Fuego, he did strings on. Pirates, he did strings on. Cecilia, Beautiful, oh no, and Paper Planes, yeah. So strings is kind of like the thing where, for the first and the last song, I didn't, I wanted those to go full on orchestral, cinematic, and then for the rest of the songs, they still needed to be in that pop singer-songwriter world, but with just a little bit of an element of strings pulling through them to connect them to the whole as if the record is a movie or a film.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so
I
much
don't even
for.
know if I just answered your question. I just kind
No,
of
no,
babbled
no,
there.
no, no, no. You did, you did. And I think so. In terms of just putting out singles, I want to kind of pick your
Mhm.
brain a little bit as to how that process is how that process is informed for you as an artist. So we have had
Mhm.
Paper Planes, we had Cecilia, and now we're putting out Fuego, or I think, and after Fuego, I think Sailing, which is my favorite. Um,
Ah,
uh, yes, it's coming out. So what has informed how those singles have been put out so far?
kind of. Are you asking kind of why I chose to release them in the way that I did?
Yes, in the order. Yeah,
So, Paper Planes was, I just we shot the video for that one, and then the imagery for the video kind of set. I think that kind of just set the tone for what the record was going to be. And I also just absolutely fell in love with the harmonium organ that you and I talked about last time when
yeah,
we
yeah,
chatted a little bit.
yeah.
And so, and also then, this the strings that play with me in the video and on the record, I felt like that was kind of like a nice snapshot of the record that was going to come, and so that made it a good good jump off point for the first single. Um, Sailing was a song, that was kind of just about a journey that meant a lot to me, and that kind of just happened to be the second single. And then Cecilia being a slightly more up tempo record. So when we got closer to the record, I wanted to be a little bit more energetic. And then Fuego is by far the most up tempo record. And knowing that we're going to hit a little bit of radio with the release of the record, uh, I thought that one would be just, it would lend itself really well to radio. And also by this time, you've already heard like some pretty, slower moving or mid tempo or a little bit more I don't know, like syrupy kind of tunes. So I thought it was, it's time to give the people something that they can just bob ahead to a little bit. So
Okay, we will talk about Fuego as the stuff that bookends this conversation, but um, I I I want to be biased right now. I want to talk about Sailing, which I was listening to last night, and it gave me all kinds of vibes, right? And I think the first stuff that came into my head, like, this kind of has a religious undertone to it. I don't know if it does or not, but uh, could you kindly take me through writing Sailing and what it means from your perspective as a creator?
yeah, kind of like how you say, whenever anybody listens to a song, I think they kind of take stuff that's happening either in their life or their world of experience, and they kind of put themselves in that seat while listening to the song. So it's funny how a lot of times people would listen to songs, and I have one idea of what I'm writing about, but then I also have this agenda in the back of my mind going, oh, but it could also be this and this. So if I change a couple words here and there, it could mean these different things to somebody else. But Sailing, you nailed it on the head. Like for me, it was, um, it's a song that I wrote quite a while ago, and it 100% has a little bit of a religious undertone where I've been going through life kind of just feeling like you get, and I don't know if, I'll never blame Toronto. Toronto's such an incredible city. But there's this idea that, what are you doing? Are you working on this? What's your next project? What's this? Like, what are you doing? Are you doing something amazing? Are you doing something great? And it's kind of plays into that rat race where we kind of like just go full tilt, and the stuff that's really important in life you kind of put on the back burner. And so I got to a place where I felt that my relationship with God had kind of become second fiddle, and I've been chasing all these different things. And Sailing was this imagery of kind of just putting a full stop and getting to this meditative place where the world just needs to chill out, because otherwise, you're going to lose who you are. And um, kind of going back to what is important. And in this case, for me, I felt like I needed to go back to my anchor or my center, kind of going back to God, and um, finding again who I am in what I really truly believe in. And then just finding that rock, that peace, that silence, that place where you're able to look at life and kind of go, oh, this is what's important, or this is what's important, as opposed to all these things that's constantly trying to take your attention and change the direction of your life. Because it's so easy to just live for things as opposed to living for relationship, and a relationship with, a lot of people believe different things, but what's really important, and the things that really sustain life. And in my case, this whole song kind of was, my relationship with God and getting back to that relationship.
Just beautiful, beautiful. I was listening to it, and I'm like, in this 3 minutes or however many minutes long it was, it actually did that for me. And I listened to it over and over again. And at some point, I'm like, hey, I'm meant to be listening to Fuego because I'm going to talk to you about it. Why am I so pulled to this song? But now I just wanted to comment on that really quickly there, for, and which I think which plays into your ability in artistry to not necessarily hit people over the head with the core message that the song is trying to expound on, but still being as effective as for somebody who's intuitive to know exactly what you're talking about, to be able to key into it and also find that meaning that you're trying to express. I found that very profound in how the song was put together.
Oh, thanks, man.
Talk about your current single Fuego. Tell me about it. How you arrived on it. I was listening to it and I'm like, okay, it's kind of described as world music. Is that current is an accurate description of what the sound might be?
I haven't had somebody tell me that yet. But I
Okay.
love it.
I'm like,
I love that very much because, I with my previous record, that was kind of a big thing, where I wanted to bring a little bit of the world that surrounded me while growing up in South Africa into that record. And then for
mhm,
this record, obviously, like, I borrowed a little bit of the inspiration from the cultures from the places that I visited. And obviously Cecilia's backup vocals kind of reference that South African music influence a little bit. So it's great. I don't know, like, I don't I didn't really intentionally go into this one having that same idea, but I love that it comes through. That's great. uh, but yeah, Fuego, I wanted a song that felt like Wanderlust, because that wide-eyed, the world is like just ready, want to jump in, want to see the world, and needed the music to kind of reflect that. So that four on the floor kick all the way
yeah.
through, those very optimistic, like, string stabs, that kind of just drives the song forward. But ultimately, the song had to be about Wanderlust, and then on the backdrop of telling about this trip in Antigua, Guatemala, and climbing Volcan Fuego and Acatenango, the two volcanoes that's, well, obviously Fuego is like the title of the song, so named after that volcano in Guatemala. But then also just a little bit, um, releasing the music video for Fuego. I don't know when this will go live, but on the 26th of September is when the video comes out for Fuego. And the video is kind of like a travel vlog, where waking up in the morning, exactly how the song starts, waking at 5 in the morning, and then you can kind of see the city, or the streets of Antigua, and then next we're up the volcano, and next we're on a river in Rio Dulce in Guatemala, and next in Tikal by the old pyramids in the north of Guatemala. So that whole song is kind of like a travel vlog song. Just, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking about what this would look like in a concert. Like it would like in a huge stadium and you playing this stuff and people just jumping up and down, because that's kind of the vibe. I was kind of getting from it. So congratulations on Fuego. I
Thanks.
in relation to the other songs in the album, just like you said, it does put like it just put that pulse, I guess, into all of the other big ballady type of
Mm-hmm.
sound. I want to go back to this love that you have struck for Antigua and those places, and like where do you think that affection comes from when you start to listen to how these places has influenced so much of the music you now write?
Right. I think that love kind of is rooted in a love for uh, art and culture and people and language from different places. Um, growing up, I was born in Namibia in the Okavango Delta in like the far north of Namibia, and some of the stories that my mom had told me, and then moving to Windhoek, the capital city of Namibia, remembering some of the stuff there, the being surrounded by the different like music and culture from that area, and then moving to South Africa and singing in choirs and literally being exposed to all of the different music styles and choral styles and um, different music that you hear on the radio in South Africa, I think is what kind of like tickled that. Oh, there's all these things out there in this world. And then when I came to Canada, I was at Humber College, and in my first year, got put into a Latin ensemble, and all of a sudden, I had to sing salsa, merengue, bachata, all these different things in a language that I don't understand. And so the sound of Spanish was kind of the thing that I fell in love with, and then got, whoa, what is like, I want to know more about the art, the music, the culture, and then fell in love with the language, fell in love with the music, and then just absolutely had to go to South and Central America. And then once I was in Guatemala, that was the end of that, and kind of fell in love uh, with that culture and music, and eventually signed up for some first year Spanish classes and learn a little bit of Spanish. And so I'm a terrible Spanish speaker, but I understand and speak a little bit. And but I think it's just that love for what people are capable of all over the world and how that translate into music and art. And that is super exciting. And I think I will forever, when I make music, use that as a inspiration in my music, and want to work with people in that's from different musical backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and pull that into music for as long as I make music. And it's just so exciting too, to be able to fly to different parts of the world and be in the studio with somebody that's an expert in classical Indian music, or whatever it is, and bringing those worlds together in a, a piece of music that reflects them and yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your background is so diverse, and I think we talked about this the last time we spoke. Just being able to key into all those pieces of yourself, and not necessarily from even um, um, the land of your birth or where you grew up, but as you progress through life, being able to absorb all that is all that you gather and have them reflect in your music somehow, I think is also brilliant, and I think is something to be admired as well.
Thanks, man.
um, so I couldn't help but thinking about the video that you're putting out for Fuego, and as soon as you mentioned video, I'm like, does this have a piano sitting or rather an organ sitting in the middle of a road? So what about the
Not this time.
that's done and dusted? You're not going back there anymore?
No, eventually, I kind of liked, fake playing while the playback is happening in the studio, and you're pretend. Well, you're actually playing and singing along, but obviously, what you're hearing is, we all know the magic of music videos.
Yeah, for sure, for
um,
sure.
no, I'll definitely do it again. I had such a good time doing that and recreating that. But for this video, it's quite a bit different. It's actually a bunch of footage that I took in 2015 when I was in Guatemala.
Hmm.
And then I worked with this great director and editor, Chris Strikes, and he edited and colored like my handheld camera footage. Like, I'm not by any means a videographer, but while I was there, I was in the moment, kind of just taking some footage for my own, like, be able to just kind of watch back to it, or look back to it, and unbeknownst to me, was going to write a song about this whole experience many years later. And the footage just kind of works really well because it tells the story along with the lyrics that tells the story, and so it came together pretty nice. And Chris did such an incredible job editing and coloring the video.
Awesome. And you say tentatively September 26th?
It is definitely happening on September 26th. It's there's a premiere on the 26th, and then I don't know. I never know with these things whether I should say dates, because I don't know. Is this like, when is this being released? Like, what are we live right now? Or
No, I'm really excited for the few videos I've seen of yourself. I also know that those are really well executed as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing Fuego and how it turns out, and how, it drives the story along. But again, I'm so excited for you. I'm really a fan. I consider myself a fan of yours, of your music, and how you have chosen to lead that aspect of what you do. So thank you very much. Congratulations again on Fuego and the album itself. Just a few takeaways for me is that at some point when that record comes out in paper form or in physical copy, I am going to be rushing to get one.
all right.
So you talked about Atmos. Did you find that mode of release would serve the music a lot better than what we have right now?
I think it just will be a completely different experience. Atmos, I don't know if you've ever been in a Atmos studio, but everybody that goes to a movie theater has experienced
Yeah.
Dolby Atmos surround
Yes.
sound. It is a life-changing experience. Paper Planes and a couple of the other tunes on the record has already been remixed for Atmos, and it is kind of like, the best way that I can explain it is, imagine that as if you've been watching movies in black and white for all your life in 2 dimensions,
Gotcha.
and then
Gotcha.
you get to see Avatar,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
3D and in color. So
Mhm.
Dolby Atmos, listening to music in Dolby Atmos feels like that. All of a sudden, you are center stage, and the string section is right behind you, and the vocalist is right in front of you, and you're just so immersed in the. It is absolutely life changing, and it ruined stereo music for me. From now on, every time I listen to stereo, I just feel like, oh, I
There's
know what
something
music
missing. Yeah.
can sound. Yeah, I know what it can sound like. And I think this record, because of the nature of the production and the arrangement, lends itself really well to Atmos, and I cannot wait to be able to listen to the whole thing in that environment.
Absolutely. Me, same here. I think everything that you said is spot on. And we talked about your music the last time being an experience. I remember using that word, and I think this is just going to take it to the next level. So, congratulations again, Francois. I'm going to keep looking out for that. Congratulations on the album. Once all of this is cut together, and we start to share these interviews, we're going to do as much as we can on our corner to let people know how incredible of an artist that you are.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself talking with you again and catching up with
Me
you. So
too. I
thank
am
you, sir.
also a really big fan of yours. So I've been looking for, as soon as Carrie, my publicist, emailed me and said that I got an interview with you, I was like, yes, okay, let's do it. It's just great. It's a nice hang. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.